Hi, my name is John Coonley, the owner of the Coonley Law Firm. Today I'm going to be talking about corporate counsel and some things to consider prior to hiring an attorney. Almost every business will need an attorney at one point in time or another, and often by having an attorney review some things up front, you can save yourself a lot of time and a lot of hassles in the future. For most businesses, continuous legal oversight is unnecessary. The majority of companies will most greatly benefit on a sliding scale, and that is receiving the majority of their advice in the beginning and then receiving less and less advice as they overcome obstacles in the first year of business. Corporate counsel is a loose term that can mean anything from full-time in-house attorneys to a singular firm or attorneys that are paid based on prearranged terms. There are a few very good reasons to have an ongoing working relationship with an attorney. First, having someone who is familiar with your business is more efficient. They would have already completed their conflict checks, and they already have a good understanding of your business and the potential issues that your business could encounter. Second, they have a working relationship with you and your business, which will allow for more give and take. A couple reasons why this might be beneficial. They'll be more willing to work out payment schedules if your company is having a cash flow problem. They'll be more willing to take urgent phone calls and to meet outside of traditional business hours. And it's likely that you'll be able to negotiate for a more favorable rate. Third, by staying with the same firm or the same attorney, you will more likely be able to have effective long-term planning and succession planning for your business. Last, there's a certain level of trust that is developed between you and your attorney. And typically, as a relationship develops, it's going to be easier to talk about and to deal with personal issues because you know that you can confide in your attorney and you know that he'll do what's in your best interest. There are definitely disadvantages with maintaining a relationship with only one attorney. One, if you are retaining that attorney, you will incur a monthly expense which may or may not be needed. Two, you may incur a feeling of marriage. You feel obligated to go with the same person every time, even if the relationship isn't maybe necessarily working out the way that you had hoped. Third, there's a lack of shopping for professionals that may better suit your needs. For instance, a great law firm for divorces may not necessarily be a great law firm for starting a business. Last, sometimes a single attorney or a single law firm is not an all-inclusive answer. A great example of this is securities work. Say your business is a startup and now it needs someone to make a private equity offering. Very few firms do private equity offerings. Many firms help startups. It's important to recognize the difference between a retainer versus a prepaid agreement. A retainer is payment for services yet to be rendered. A firm that receives retainer money must keep the retainer money in that firm's trust account until the firm has earned the money, and then they must provide special notices for transferring the money from their trust account to their checking account. The positives about this are that the unearned portion of the retainer money can be recovered if the firm never performs the work. Typically, retainers are large upfront payments, and typically you are paying for services to be rendered at the full hourly rate. Also, attorneys are pretty good at estimating the amount of time they're going to need, so the chance of receiving any refund on retainer is probably pretty low. Prepaid services are when you pay for services and the firm is entitled to the money rendered regardless of whether or not the services are needed. A pretty good example of this is sometimes firms will charge an investigative fee. That means they're going to charge a certain amount of money to determine whether or not they want to help you, and they are under no obligation to do anything other than to investigate your matter. The pros for this type of prepayment are that generally the rates are more favorable because the payment is guaranteed and there is no collection risk and there is very little administrative costs. However, this could be an expense that your business may not need to incur. So it's good to weigh the differences between a retainer payment and a prepayment, and then keep that in mind when you're balancing it against the traditional method of paying after services have been rendered. There are limitless numbers of alternatives to these three approaches to payment that I've already discussed. For instance, a firm can offer a certain number of hours at a reduced rate in order to establish a continuous relationship, but then convert to regular rates after the original hours are used up. Conversely, a firm may be willing to do a certain number of hours at the full rate, but if the project turns into being a very large project, be willing to reduce the rate as the hours grow. Another approach is that often firms will do various routine jobs, such as doing incorporations or filing routine paperwork for a flat rate. Last, some firms are willing to accept a flat fee, either monthly or yearly, for either unlimited time or a set number of hours, but only for a certain segment of services. In summary, it's important to remember that your relationship with your attorney is no different than your relationship with any other independent contractor or any other professional for that matter, and that you are free to negotiate any arrangement you would like that makes sense for you. You should make sure that you completely understand the arrangement you are making before you actually agree to anything, and always make sure you ask plenty of questions until you're totally comfortable. In the end, you need to do what makes the most sense for you and your business, and overpaying or cutting corners can both be detrimental to your bottom line. Thank you for listening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.